Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. Today I'm with Laurie Calcaterra. We're talking about Path of the Pale Rider. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Why do you love comics? It's the first question I ask
I
everyone who
love
comes on the show.
comics are awesome because you can do anything in a comic book, right? And it's a visual medium. So you get to see what's inside someone's head. But it's like you're not caught up with CGI or you know what I mean? Some things that can really hang you up, I think, in like movies where it's like it takes you out of the moment. But it's like I love I'm a big fan of Image comics. I love post-apocalyptic comics. So like one of my most favorite recently that I'm rereading is East of West.
Mhm.
And that's a great comic about the apocalypse. And it's like you get to experience, these four horsemen of the apocalypse that are in a body and they're walking through this well-crafted world. And it's like you can see the technology that you can, put yourself in that world. And that's kind of unique for comics, I think, where it's like you get to read it at your own pace, you get to enjoy all the art, but the story can still suck you in and it can go anywhere, it can go any direction. Comics are awesome, you know?
You can go back, you can skip, you can
Yeah.
rewind, all you want.
Yeah, you can reread. I mean, like if you were like, wait a minute, I've seen that character before and like flip back two chapters and be like, aha.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because you can do that in a novel, but it's always a pain. Because like all the pages look alike. Ah, where is that character from? But in a comic, you're
yeah,
like,
and I'm
yep.
ha, there he is. But in a comic, it's like they give you the visuals. So you don't have to imagine,
Mhm.
what this person looks like. They give it to you. They can give you the scenery. It's like one panel, they can communicate so much. You can see expression from what your protagonist or whoever your main character is going through, what's going on in the background. If there's action, there's things, there's fight scenes. It's like obviously there's nothing moving, but
Yeah.
you can see all the action in the background with lines and art. It's just you gotta love it. You got to.
Is there any particular specific comic that triggered your love of comics?
Oh, well, there's a lot. Frank Miller, The Watchmen, was really influential
Mhm.
to me.
Yeah.
Um, The Killing Joke, that's also Frank Miller. No wonder.
Yeah. Alan Moore.
Um, Alan Moore, thank you.
Yeah.
Alan Moore's in Watchmen too.
Yeah.
And then the Walking Dead series influenced me a lot. That series, Robert Kirkman's writing is really, really well done. I like how there's always twists and turns. He's not afraid to kill off characters. It's just, his stories are so well crafted. I'm not talking about the TV show, I'm talking about the comic book. Like, that's a really good series. If people haven't actually read all the way through The Walking Dead, because it's been completed, they should take the time to go back and actually read it in the original black and white. They've redone it in color, but something about that black and white, the gritty texture, of that world, it'll just get you.
How did you feel when it all of a sudden ended with no news whatsoever? Like, nobody knew it was ending. It just the last issue came out and they said it was the
No,
last issue.
we were like, what?
The Walking Dead is over?
I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like I mean, he was so ready to move on. He was working on all these other projects. Like he was working on Invincible, and then there was I forget all the names of the other ones that he had going concurrently, but he was just getting pulled in so many different directions. And like the TV show is its own animal, and he had actually like disassociated himself with the TV show at that point too. Like he wasn't a showrunner anymore. He had already passed over the reins. I'm like, he's moving on to something else. So it was time. It was time, I think. It's like in that one, it was almost like, how are they going to keep outdoing what happened, like the last big baddie? And they did for a while. You know what I mean? It's like they got more gruesome, they got more terrible. But then after that last one, it's like, now what? How do they outdo that?
What comic made you realize you wanted to make comics?
You know, it's funny. I didn't know I was going to make comics. um, my husband did. So I actually, this is really interesting. I actually practice Filipino martial arts,
Really? Arnis?
and I've practiced for a long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually practice Cali's Illustrissimo.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but I've done Pikiti Tertia and Eskrima. I've been a practitioner for 25 years. So I was actually choreographing fight scenes for a production company in Detroit, Michigan. And that's kind of where I got involved with production. And they were like, hey, you ever thought about writing content? So I started writing web series for this production company. And so when I wrote this script, I actually wrote it as a full-length feature film. And I looked at it and I was like, there's no way that we can produce this. This is a multi-million-dollar project. So I sat on it for a year and I didn't know what to do with it. And finally, my husband was like, okay, you've been obsessing about this for long enough. Give it to me. I'll read it. And he was the one that was like, this is a comic book. And I was like, ding. Yes, it is. Yeah.
So from that point on, how did the whole project
So,
come together?
hmm. Oh, from that point, it became a lot of logistics. So then it was, okay, my script is finalized. I had to go back and split it up into episodes, right? Because we're going to do an episodal um, comic book. So there's 13 episodes in like the first arc. So if it was like a Netflix show, it'd be like 13 episodes of season 1, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm already writing season 2. It keeps going. um, and then once the script was finalized, we went looking for an illustrator. I found a couple. We started working on the project, and then like 2020 hit, everything blew up. Lost both my illustrators, thought about things for a long time, started over with the brand new illustrator this year, and got Kickstarter ready. Like there's a lot of moving parts for my Kickstarter, which I'll talk about later, but I think that having a break in the middle kind of gave me the time to really think about what I wanted to do long term and to get everything ready. So when I found the right illustrator, we're up and we're ready to go. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
All he had to do was complete 8 pages for a Kickstarter preview, and then the rest we're gonna fund with the Kickstarter. And then from there, it's like that will fund the beginning of episode 2 as well. So then we can start cranking out episodes because they're ready to go. We just need the funds to create them. So
Okay. So what is your illustrator's name?
my illustrator's name is Marco DeFillo.
Marco De
You
Fillo.
can, yeah,
Yeah.
you can check him out. He has an Instagram page called Marco DeFillo Art. He's on Facebook too, but his art's fabulous, like amazing.
And elevator pitch time. If
Yeah.
somebody doesn't know what Path of the Pale Rider is about, you got to tell them in just maybe 5 sentences or less. What would you say?
Okay, so imagine a world where when you die, your soul no longer leaves your body. You're stuck in decaying flesh, and the world like no longer makes sense. So we follow Jude St. Clair 10 years into the apocalypse. He is not complacent and he's looking for the answers. Is it a government conspiracy, chemical spill, meteorite from space? Who knows? But he's searching for the answer and he's looking to set the world right. Can he survive long enough to find the answers?
Dun, dun, dun.
Is that
Path,
good?
Path of the Pale Rider.
What?
Path of the Pale Rider. The title
Yeah.
itself sounds like it was heavily
Yeah.
influenced by westerns.
Yes.
So yeah, can you talk a little bit
There's
about that?
actually, yes. Okay. So spaghetti westerns. This whole world is basically devolved into the Wild West, right? So our cowboy, his name is Jude St. Clair. Yes, he kind of resembles a certain cowboy from all the spaghetti westerns with the squint. There is actually a movie with Clint Eastwood called The Pale Rider, and if you understand what that's talking about, it's a biblical term because there's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. the Antichrist, war, famine, and death. And when you read the passage in the Bible, it talks about death riding in on a
Pale horse.
pale horse.
Yeah.
So the pale rider is death. So the whole point of the comic is that the death process is broken for everybody. Humans, animals, insects, nobody dies. Well, their body dies, but your soul is trapped inside. So it's like your body's decaying, you slowly go crazy because your brain is decaying. You get forgetful, you get angry, you become indifferent. It's like a slow descent into madness, right? You have this whole population now that becomes unpredictable. And then the fallout that happens between other people, the living versus the undead, government versus the undead. We have undead animals to deal with. It's like, if you look at our Kickstarter preview pages, we have 8 pages, which kind of show Jude and his trusty sidekick, Prince, who's his horse, traveling through this kind of like dilapidated infrastructure. Everything's fallen apart. It's 10 years, right? And they come across this undead bear. Well, if you don't know what you're reading, it's just a dead bear. So, and they're being extra quiet and they're like sneaking over it because it's blocking the whole road. And Jude made a conscious choice to pick up this glass earlier in the comic. And they like sneak past the bear and they're like, everything's okay. And all of a sudden his horse trips, this glass flies out and shatters. And now the bear's awake. So how do you deal with an apex predator that you can't kill? They can run faster than you, they can climb trees, they can swim, they got claws, they got teeth. They're not happy, they're probably extra grumpy because they're undead and they're coming after you. So you got to read the comic to find out what happened.
Got to read the comic to figure out how they get out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they get out, right? They might not.
And you mentioned earlier about having multiple seasons. How many seasons would we be looking at?
Well, there's 13 issues of the first season. I am, let's see, I'm 1, 2, 3 episodes into season 2. But the way that I usually write the first episode and I'll write the last episode and I kind of fill in the blanks. Because then I know like where I want to take the character, and then I know like I have to develop certain relationships or give you certain background about characters, so that way the end makes sense. Because if you're not setting up the story correctly, it's just a bummer, right? You can't. This person can pick locks now. All of a sudden, they've never done that before the entire series, right? They can't just randomly pick up a new skill. So stuff like that. So probably 13 in the second season, but I'm about 4 episodes in. I got to a point where I'm trying to develop some nasty stuff for my character to go through. Poor Jude. I put him through the ringer. I really do.
That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do.
And it's the apocalypse too, so it's not a fun time. It's not a fun time.
Can you explain the prevailing image on your Kickstarter? It's
oh,
yeah.
Oh, no one's ever asked me that before. How do I explain it without spoil? This is actually a spoiler.
You don't have to answer it if it is.
You will find out later in the comic book. This is actually an extremely important image for the comic, but you won't actually know what it is until much later. There is one character specifically that this refers to, but you don't meet him for a while. So I don't want to say anything else. But it's really important. So when you get there, when you read it, you're going to be like, aha, this is what this is. This is what this is about.
Very cool. So let's talk about the Kickstarter itself. As we know,
Yeah.
Kickstarter has a goal, a funding goal, and then a bunch of stretch goals, a bunch of tiers that you can use to reach those goals. How much are we looking at for the first issue?
I'm trying to raise $4,450, and of course, most of that is for art production. We have already completed 8 pages. The issue is 24 pages. Of course, with a color cover and a color back. So total, I think it's 28 page, like it's 24 pages with a color cover front and back. And of course, we have to pay for shipping and merchandise and all of that fun stuff. That's kind of logistics to get people what they are going to get for the reward. I do have some stretch goals in there, but being that this is our first Kickstarter and our first episode, we really just want to make sure that we get our goal so that we can get the story started. So we have lots of different levels, and it's really cool now that you can customize pretty much every level with an add-on. So like our first level, of course, is $1. Anything is appreciated, any amount. And then like at $5, you can actually get a PDF copy of the comic. So we would just email it right to you. So you get to read it for $5. That's cool, right? And then at $10, you can actually get the PDF, and then we'll throw in a keychain. So I'll mail you a keychain. It's a Path of the Pale Rider keychain. So you can get something physical, but you still get a PDF copy. So what I think, would be the most popular reward is our $15 level, which is you get a physical copy of the comic. So we have a few different levels of that. Like I have a $15 early bird special, which is the physical copy. But on top of that, we're running a limited edition sticker. There's only 50 available, and then after that, they're gone. And we're only running this sticker with episode 1. Next episode, we'll be getting a completely different sticker. So these are going to be collectible. We also have like Marco's main cover, and then I have 3 variant covers that have been done by other artists. So you could get the variant cover by Everett Watkins, which if you look at the Kickstarter page, I'll have them listed. And at the bottom, it'll have our names, and it'll have like, if it's Everett's cover, his last name will be there, Watkins. So like Everett's cover is the cowboy, Jose's cover is the bear, and then David Rodriguez, his cover is the disc. And it has some zombies and stuff in the background, which is really cool. So, but what's nice is if you like a couple of different covers, you can do an add-on. So it's like, if you can't decide if you want Jose's cover or David's cover, maybe you want them both, you can add on a variant for $10. So you can get, kind of customize what you want. And then they go up from there. Let's see. So at $25, I didn't talk about this yet, but we have a short film that's going to be released with every single episode. So in this one, we produced a commercial for the undead retirement community called Pine Fox. Instead of Pine Box, because that's what they bury you in. So Pine Fox. So it's this hilarious commercial. It looks like a legitimate commercial, but it's interspliced with these like violent images of riots and what's like really going on in this world. So it's an interesting like 2-minute watch. It's just something for fun, but you get to kind of experience other parts of this world that I've created that you wouldn't necessarily see following Jude in the comic. So we're going to have one every episode, and these are going to be interactive. So if you want to participate, we're going to pick a subject for every episode. So like next episode, we're doing conspiracy theories. So what you can do is you can video yourself, like I want a 30-second clip of yourself pretending to be in this world, maybe being interviewed or talking about a conspiracy theory, why you think the dead don't die. So it could be like you talking about like it's the rapture, or you talking about it's aliens, or it could be any topic. And I'll throw out some suggestions out there to my socials. But like if you really want to be a part of those, I recommend being on the Facebook group, because that's kind of where they get all the information first. The Instagram gets it as well. Okay. So at the $25 level, you get the PDF, the physical copy with Marco's cover, but I'm also giving away like, I have patches that were made for one of the riot scenes that my rioters wore. And they say, dead outside, still human inside. And they have a picture of a disc with a line through it. Did I explain what discs are? No.
Go ahead.
Okay. So part of the technology in this world, they wear this contraption that if it's like a big circle, and if they tap it, it will beat with their heart, and it has like audio and visual, right? So it's something real easy. So like if a policeman wants to see if you're living or undead, he'll just go tap it, and it will show if you're alive or not. Okay. And of course, if you've been undead for a while, you're decomposing. It's pretty easy to tell, but it's more like if you've just passed. Because later on in the story, what happens is that the undead become like second class. They lose rights. They get separate. They get told they have to live separately, so they're being separated out of the population. So, so yeah. So we have the patches. They have the disc and the thing for 25. 35. I have the PDF copy, and then you get 2 copies of the comic. One that's signed by me for collection. Like if you don't, if you want to keep it, you don't want it opened, a signed copy, and then you have one that you can read. So one of my friends asked me for that one. His name is Nat, so it's called the Nat Special. $40 or more, you get it signed by both myself and the illustrator Marco DeFillo. $50, you unlock like the keychain, the T-shirt, and then the 2 copies. $75, you get all 4 covers plus all the merch. And then at $100, we throw everything in the bust at you, but Marco will also draw your likeness into the comic. So we call that level immortality because you will forever be in print. But I guarantee you we're going to kill you off pretty quick. It's just a running joke that we thought would be funny. It's like, oh, here I am. Oh, I died.
But this is a world where the dead don't go away.
Exactly. So you could show up in as many episodes as an undead.
It seems to me
fun.
that you have, how do I put this? So the way that the story ends up shaking out, where the undead end up becoming second class citizens and they start losing their rights, that seems to me like invariably there's a social statement that's going on. Was that intentional, or is it just how the story shook out?
Well, it was intentional. I kind of I point a real big spotlight at the human race, and I show how ugly we can be. It's kind of hard. I think at times when I was writing it, I was like, this is how we would act if we were being ugly. One of the things with the discs and being separated, the government creates this police force. They're called the collectors. And they're all they're supposed to do is go find undead and take them out of whatever living community they're in and take them to this undead retirement community because they don't have a say anymore, which opens up another whole ethics problem. Because what if I'm a mother and my child is undead, but I'm not, and they come to take my child?
Right.
What do I do? Or I'm undead and she's not, and they come to take me, leaving her by herself. What do you do? So it just opens this big can of worms. You know what I mean? Between that and like, oh, and I there's an anonymous phone number. So you can call this number and be like, hey, my neighbor's undead, come pick him up. So it's like, and this is still true. We still have stuff like this today,
Yeah.
So it's just how that world works, but I kind of mirror off the ugliness of what we actually see. But I never give any answers about what's right or wrong. I just kind of showcase the behavior, and then you have to make the decision, what's right and what's wrong. It would be hard to make a decision. It's like if you knew that your neighbor was undead and that maybe they didn't care if you were living or not anymore, and they would just run you over with their car, or they forget who you are, or they become violent because they're slowly progressing into madness. What would you do? How would you treat them?
Yeah.
But the hard part is whatever laws or rules or rights you take away from them, you have to realize that that's going to be you someday, because there's no escape.
Yeah. You wrote
There's
this.
no.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You wrote this before 2020.
I did. I wrote it in 2018, and then stuff started happening, and I got really scared.
Did you change anything in the last 2 years, considering everything?
No. I know. No, it was done before 2020 because that's when we were looking for an illustrator. It was finalized. And like people that had read it were like, Laurie. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know, you know. They were like, stop writing. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, guys. But it's really weird. Sometimes it's weird, you know, when you're reading the news and you're like, oh, I wrote that too, you know. But it's all based on history, and history is repeating itself, you know what I mean? So it's not like I made up anonymous phone numbers, you know, that you can call to turn in your neighbor. Those have been around forever. You know, it's like I based that off of, you know, Nazism and like calling and turning in the Jews. It's like we've been doing that crap forever. So it's like stuff still happens. It's weird.
Yeah, I remember when the pandemic started, maybe 2 weeks in, I started playing a video game, The Last of Us, and I didn't know what it was
Yeah.
about. And then
Oh, you didn't know?
I didn't know what it was about. It was just heavily recommended to me.
Virus.
Within 5 minutes, there's a newspaper that says virus destroys half of the human race. And I'm like, wait, what? I don't think I can
Oh no,
play
what
this right now.
am I playing?
I'll play this in several months.
We'll see how it turns out first, right? Before I play this game. And then it gets real scary real quick in that game where you're like running and there's riots and there's people and you're like picking up kids and oh, it's crazy. I love that game though. It's great.
Such a
But
great
like
game.
talk about scary. Talk about scary. I play that. I play Fallout too, and those are my two big ones that I love to play. But I love like apocalypse stories like Mad Max and I Am Legend, and it's like you can name so many. Like Umbrella Academy is an apocalypse story. They're trying to stop the apocalypse, right? It's just like I could go on, but I'll stop.
What can you talk about the process of changing it from a screenplay to comic book scripts?
Yeah, that was it was only challenging because I had to split it up evenly. You know what I mean? And I always want to leave everybody with kind of like a cliffhanger so they want to know how it resolves. But I mean, really after that, that was it. It's like because I'm pretty descriptive in my setting. So when you talk about like it's interior, it's daytime, and we're in this place, and then you give like a good description about the setting that your characters are in, and like the first time you introduce the character, you're always super descriptive about that character. So that kind of helped my illustrators, like, okay, this is what Jude looks like. But I went one step further, and then like when I knew that someone would be drawing these, I did character bios. So I pulled up, and they have these everywhere. It's like you can go on Pinterest and pull up like character bio sheets, and they give you lots of cool things that you maybe didn't think about, like how old is Jude? Oh, he's 35. Where was he born? Royal Oak, Michigan. What did he do before the apocalypse? I'm not going to say, but I have that. You know, and it's like, does he have any characteristics? What color is his hair? How, you know, stuff like that. And like, what's his past? Stuff like that. So for Jude, that's important, but maybe you didn't think about that for some of your other characters that are there just for like moral support. But it fleshes them out, and it helps you write them if you understand their background too. So there's more that I wrote, you know, after I was creating like the character bios. So that helped. But after I had them split up, they were ready to go. It took like there's one or two of them where I was like, do I end it here or do I end it here? And then when I finally finalized it, I was like, okay, this makes sense. But Marco was able to read episode 1 and be like, okay, I see it. You know what I mean? So it was pretty descriptive enough for him to be able to draw it.
Yeah.
And it's real dang close to how I see it in my mind. So he's amazing. I can't do what he does. Whew.
No, comic book art is hard.
Yeah.
It's like, really hard.
The drawing action is insane. It's like they're moving through space, but you have to understand how gravity works and perspective and be able to draw the background
and
anatomy. Expression.
Yeah.
Yes, and anatomy. I was like, you have to, it's just so insane the stuff that they have to do. And Marco, like his process, first thing that we do is we read through the script, you know, and then I'll kind of point out like, this is important, this is important, this is important. And he'll go and he'll sketch out, you know, how he wants the pages to go. And he'll do like maybe 3 sketches of each page. And he's constantly like changing things. So like he'll draw one way and then he'll like switch the paneling or like switch the perspective or, you know, switch the camera angle. And I'm like, how does he think of these things? I'm like, if I could do one, that would be great. But he's so quick and like changing things around. And I'm like, I like this on this one and this one on that one. He's like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And then I thought this. He's just so creative. And then he'll take those three kind of sketches that he'll do and he'll turn it into like a pencil rendering where it looks real nice. And then he'll show it to me one last time and be like, any final thoughts? And I'll just, like for me at that point, I'm just looking to make sure the script points are covered. Like, oh, we need to add a star to Prince's head. He's like, oh, got it. And then he inks it and that's it. You know what I mean? And then he sends it to me and I do the text. I got the easy part. I got the easy part. And that's it. So he's really good.
Yeah, I think also probably the most frustrating thing for artists would be needing to draw the background over and over and over again.
Yeah. Tree. The same tree. More rocks. I don't know. That's his job. He's good at it. That's why he's paid.
Good luck with the comic. I am very excited for you. This will go up on April 15th.
Yes.
So, and then by the time this interview goes up, it'll have already been up. There will be videos down below in the description.
Cool.
Good luck. Come back anytime for the next, for the next Kickstarters. Yeah.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, we're still recording.
Okay. There's one more thing I didn't talk about with the Kickstarter.
Okay.
We are actually building in riddles to every episode too. So I have the comic book. So if you're just into comic books and you just want to read the main story, there it is. It's beautiful. It's a great story. It'll get you. And then we have the short films where we get to explore the world. And then like the back cover is going to be a riddle on every episode. So if you go to my Kickstarter, I actually show you the back page and there's a riddle there. And if you figure it out, it takes you to some place in the real world. So I'm going to be creating extra content just for the people that solve the riddles.
Very cool. And you can have the Path of the Pale Rider World Tour.
Yeah, and I want it to be interactive and I want people to take it as far as they want to. You know what I mean? I've had people tell me like, I'm lazy. I don't want to solve riddles. Cool, read the comic. But I have people that are like, what's the riddle going to be? And I'm like, well, maybe it's Morse code this time, or maybe, it's a cipher, or, maybe it'll take you to a YouTube page. Maybe it'll take you to a web page. Maybe you have to call a phone number and listen to a message. So it's going to be this rabbit hole that you can go down and experience more of the world that we've created. So it's just something fun that we decided to do. I get to do all the fun stuff. So Marco gets to draw it and I get to do all the fun stuff.
It's supposed to be fun. So.
Absolutely. So
yep. I am glad you're having fun.
That's
Thanks for coming on the show. Come back anytime for the next episode.
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will be back for episode 2, 3, 4. If we can get to 8 will blow your mind.
All right.
8 is insane.
8 it is.
8
Thank
you. You're welcome. Thank you.